Hyakkimaru and Dororo face off against an evil woodcarver, and it's a real face-off. Greetings, my friends! It's time to take a look at another episode of the Dororo anime series. We have finally reached the second half of the season, and the tone has pretty much stayed exactly the same. What's not the same, however, is that we finally get a brand new intro and outro for the series. And just a quick hot take on both of them. There's no way that they were going to be able to top the original opening for Dororo. It was just so incredibly atmospheric. I would say that the very first opening, Fire, is one of the better anime openings that I have ever seen, and did a great job of setting the tone for the entire series. This one, on the other hand, does have some pretty amazing imagery attached to it, and the overall message is that things are actually going to start picking up from here. It's not just going to be a complete shit show for Hyakkimaru and Dororo. In fact, things might even have a happy ending by the end of the series. I don't imagine that's exactly what's going to happen, but that's what the intro indicates anyway. The intro is actually done by Asian Kung Fu Generation, which if you've been watching anime over the course of the last decade or so, you know that they've done a lot of intros, and they're famous for a lot of them, particularly from the Naruto anime series, and getting to hear them here feels pretty classic, I have to admit. But their music combined with the high-octane imagery from this intro honestly does get me kind of excited, but again, like I said, it just sort of pales in comparison to the very first intro. That's simply just my opinion. Yours might differ. Sound off in the comments section below. As for the ending, it's okay. I just don't really have much of an opinion about it, to be perfectly honest. I think it lacks a lot of the heavy impact that was the very first ending, but then again, I think it's appropriate, and again, kind of goes with the theme of the fact that, yes, things are pretty bad in this world, but they can only go up from here. That being said, this overall episode itself was surprisingly simple and sort of gets back to the run-of-the-mill storyline that Dororo is known for, which is arriving in a new place, finding a demon, getting a ham-fisted lesson, and slaying said demon. What is unique about the demon in this episode is that it's actually a combination of a human and a demon working together. There's this woman who has the miraculous ability to transform her face into pretty much anything, and she uses that to transform into the loved ones of her victims. She then drags them to a massive Buddha statue which does not have a face, and then that statue proceeds to cut the victim's face off. Basically, she's trying to find the perfect face for this statue. Why? Ridiculous, convoluted reasons. Of course, Hyakkimaru and Dororo end up getting dragged into all of this, and Dororo ends up getting taken advantage of because this woman ends up looking just like her mother. This woman goes by the name of Okaka, and she ends up taking advantage of Dororo and Hyakkimaru, drugging them and wanting to take away Hyakkimaru's face. Of course, Dororo comes to his senses, tries to stop this woman, and luckily, Hyakkimaru decides to break free of his bonds and go on the attack, stopping this woman as well as destroying the massive statue in the process, and giving us a lesson about the importance of taking things which don't belong to you, especially when they're already attached to people's bodies. So what's the rundown on this episode of Dororo? Finally getting back into the swing of things, but there were a lot of things that I really liked about this episode. One, Hyakkimaru is probably the most talkative that we have ever seen him in the series in this episode. He's forming full sentences and having conversations with Dororo, which I have to say is pretty damned refreshing. It's a shame that we don't get to follow up too more on the events which actually happened in the previous episode with him meeting his family for the first time and seeing his mother supposedly commit suicide. Spoiler warning, she actually ends up surviving and is bedridden and being looked after Lord Daigo. Their son, Tahumaru, on the other hand, is incredibly pissed off. He's got a new gnarly scar, and it looks like he's going to try and get revenge against his brother. It's pretty obvious that that was going to happen, and I was kind of hoping it wouldn't go down that route, but it's certainly what they seem to be building up to. Overall, this episode, though, like I said, was kind of classic, just getting back into the swing of things, finding a monster and slaying its ass. It also had some pretty gnarly and disturbing imagery, like the fact that this woman would cut off the face of her victims, and when it didn't end up working out for her, well, she would just kick the corpses over the side of a waterfall, which eventually piled up into a giant demonic pile of creepiness. One of the more disturbing aspects of this episode had to be the fact that this woman could quite literally transform her face, and seeing Dororo actually fall prey to this, I have to say, was pretty heartbreaking. That and the fact that it actually ended up backfiring on her when she realized that Hyakkimaru couldn't see anything, and he's never actually seen his mother before, so it wasn't going to work on him. There's also a pretty great cliffhanger ending where we get to see that they finally get a chance to relax and go to a hot spring because this is a Japanese anime, of course, and we get the big reveal that Dororo seems to have some sort of tattooed map on his back. At least we now know why Dororo's gender was probably being hidden, and that's probably because he's actually related to some sort of super ancient map which leads to something of significance. I don't know, it kind of comes across as a Deus Ex Machina kind of story that they just decided to throw in the middle of nowhere. We've seen some hints to this earlier on in the series, but it comes to fruition in this episode right here. They even get reunited with the priest, which is awesome, because he's arguably the most badass character in the series. Ultimately, though, I'm really excited to see what the second half of the series is going to offer, and I have to say that this was a pretty solid experience. I highly recommend checking it out, Dororo fans. I'm going to give this episode a 4 out of 5, a face-chopping good time. But if any of you did watch the episode, I'd love to get your thoughts about it, and you can tell me all of them in the comment section below, and what you hope to see from the rest of the Dororo anime series. Thank you all for watching this review. I'll see you all next time, and as always, stay down there, baby.